What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Guardians of the Future podcast. I'm your host, Justin Latta. Sorry for the absence in the recent week. Turns out hosting a podcast 5 days a week on another platform makes it hard to host another podcast once a week on a different platform. But we are back. We are going to talk about the trading deadline and the acquisitions by the Guardians. We're going to talk about some system movement, some draft pick debuts, some cuts. And I've got a couple interviews lined up too. I talked to Jake Fox last Guardians homestand after he went 4 for 4 and had a walk and played some good center field. Really impressed me, and thought about where things are going with him. And then last Saturday, I took in the Rubber Ducks game down in Akron. Got to talk to Rouglas Odor after the game, the Rubber Ducks manager. We talked about Will Dion. We talked about Franco Aleman. We talked about Tanner Burns, Jose Tena, Angel Martinez, Juan Brito, all good stuff over there. So we'll get to all that stuff coming up. Let's talk about deadline decisions first. So obviously, if you listen to this podcast, you do not live under a rock when it comes to the Cleveland Guardians and their moves. Guardians went out and traded Aaron Civale. That was the big deal to Tampa Bay, and wound up getting first baseman Kyle Manzardo in return. And, a lot of people were upset about that deal, understandably so. The Guardians technically were in the AL Central race, and their pitching is beat up, and Aaron Civale's cheap, and he was pitching well, and he had club control. So it wasn't like a deal they had to do. But on the reverse side of things, if you look at Civale's history, I know people don't necessarily want to hear that we can't predict injuries, obviously, but Aaron Civale is a guy who's thrown like 100 innings one time in his career. I'm going to double check myself on that. But look, he's never had a serious injury in terms of like arm health. We're not talking like Tommy John or anything like that. But he has topped 100 innings once in his career. 2 years ago, he pitched 97. In the minors, he never pitched. He did pitch over 100 innings twice. That's about as high as he's gone. He's pitching very well, and you could see over the last week or so, the Guardians' rookie pitching has been really good. You do need Civale because you have McKenzie and Bieber hurt, and truthfully don't know what the future for McKenzie holds. And if he needs surgery, you missed. That's the hard part with McKenzie is if he ends up needing surgery because of this, not only is he missing 2023, but he's missing 2024 because of the surgery. And then you're getting a guy back in 2025 who knows what it's going to look like then. That's beside the point. Bieber, he may not be here at the end of the offseason. We'll see. So, yeah, in theory, you do need Civale, and I do get that. I think the other hand of it says, though, the Guardians have a very big deficiency in the middle of their lineup. As we know, they can't score runs. They don't really have a whole lot going on at first base. I know some people listening to this might say, well, what about Jhonkensy Noel? I think I've stated my feelings there on Jhonkensy Noel. I just don't see it with him pitch selection-wise and being able to hit breaking stuff. I think there's a huge issue there. And I'm not just saying because I don't think he can hit for power. I think he can hit for power. I just don't know if he's going to hit enough to overcome the strikeouts. It's okay to have guys on your roster that strike out and hit for power. It is absolutely okay. You cannot have this Guardians lineup that consistently hits 220 or 250 or 260 with 2 home runs or 10 home runs. Their outfield, for God's sakes, has like 9 home runs combined. So I'm not saying you can't have guys like that in their lineup. I'm just saying I don't think Jhonkensy Noel has a good chance of wind up being what they need. So at first base, you get a guy like Kyle Manzardo. And if you go back to, let's say any time in the offseason, let's say over the winter, the Guardians, weren't shopping Aaron Civale at the time. He was coming off a season where he only threw 97 innings. He missed a good chunk. He came back late in the year. And he got hit hard early in the year, late in the year too. He was not do well. Obviously, the start in New York was, it was what it was in the LDS. Probably not a great situation overall. But he was a guy who, the peripherals were better than the overall stat line. But if you go back to December or January and the Guardians make this trade, or they try to make this trade, number one, Tampa Bay is not making this trade last December because Kyle Manzardo is coming off of a year where he hit 22 home runs between high A and double A as a 21-year-old in his first full season in pro ball. And he crushed both those leagues. Didn't strike out a lot, walked plenty, showed some power. he's a top 3 prospect in a very, very good system, right? And Aaron Civale is coming off a season, like I said, where he pitched 97 innings, was not great. At times, he got hit a little bit hard, even though the peripherals were better. That trade's not happening over the winter. That trade's not happening in April, even. Manzardo was thought of early in the season as one of the best prospect, top 50 prospect across baseball. That trade was not happening back in May. Aaron Civale is only expendable for the Guardians because of their spot. You can't sit there and compare your team in the division to the Twins. The AL Central's bad. Okay, let's just put it that way. And I know some people sit there and say, well, you can't blame them for the division they're in, just like you can't blame, a college football team like Ohio State, for being in the Big Ten when the Big Ten is pitiful, outside of Michigan and some years Penn State, depending on what they do. The schedule is the schedule. The division is the division. But when you get to the playoffs, you're not facing the Minnesota Twins. You're not facing the Chicago White Sox. You're facing Baltimore. You're facing Tampa Bay. You're facing a lot of good teams in the playoffs. I mean, again, I'm sitting here on August 9th recording this, and the Red Sox, who are in last place in the AL East, well, they would be second in the AL Central. They're behind Minnesota by a half a game. Okay. That the division's not good, and the AL East is good. I know there's different market dynamics that go along with that as well. I'm not blind to that either. But you're not comparing yourselves to the Twins. When you get to the playoffs, you're comparing yourselves to the Blue Jays. You're comparing yourselves to the Orioles, the Rays, the Rangers, who went out and did a lot of good things, the Astros, who are the defending champs. And you might even say, well, you just get anything can happen. You get in. And I to a certain extent, I agree. The Guardians get into the playoffs any given way, and you're even forgetting about McKenzie or Bieber coming back. Your playoff rotation is something of Civale and Williams and Bybee. That's great. You could win with that pitching. But I don't know if you've watched this team all year, if you can sit there and tell me this offense is going to score enough runs. I mean, the last 2 games against the Blue Jays before I'm recording this, they scored a combined 3 runs. And they lost, or they went 1-1. That might work in the postseason, but you have to go 3 games to do that. And I just don't see anything with this team where they were going to hit enough in the playoffs to make noise. This is not a good lineup. And the reason they weren't, they had Civale and they weren't winning. They had Josh Bell and they weren't winning. And they had Ahmed Rosario and they weren't winning. This team was not going anywhere with what they were constructed with, first and foremost. And you've got a big hole in the middle of your lineup. So again, that trade back in May is not happening. It happens because Civale is pitching great. His value is at an all-time high. And the Guardians have a good track record of getting rid of pitchers. I don't say get rid of, but capitalizing on the pitcher's value before they start to crater a little bit. Did they trade Corey Kluber a little bit late? Possibly. I mean, they got Neil Clase, who's an all-star closer, right? Delano Shields was a money balancer, whatever. They got Clase. They got an all-star closer for Kluber, and Kluber has been awful since, sadly. Well, he was good with the Yankees that one year. He did throw the no-hitter, so there is that. Of course, he threw a no-hitter there and not Cleveland in his heyday. So there is that. But he was coming off a fluke year where he got hit with a line drive in the arm. So he didn't have any serious injuries at that point either. Mike Clevenger has been pretty much a disaster since he left, except, of course, 2 weeks ago he did shut down the Guardians. Shocker. Carlos Carrasco, love Cookie. I think we all can agree with that. He's been okay this year, but he largely has not been good since he left, and that was a salary dump. Those are things they've done in the past. They have gotten out from under those contracts and from players before things have gotten bad. And that's not to suggest things will go bad with Civale, but with his control left, the way he was pitching, and the need on the market. Again, I think people need to realize that this is a trade that probably no. Look, if you're in first place and you're up by 5, 6, whatever games, you're probably not making the trade. But this trade you probably need to remove context from. I think this is about value. This is simply about player value. The Guardians got a good offer on Aaron Civale, and they took it regardless of their standing, right? Without context of the division, this is a good trade. If you make this trade over the offseason, or you make the trade, like I said, last offseason, if you make it in May, they probably couldn't make it last offseason. I'm not saying that makes it any better now. I'm just saying, like, this is a trade you make regardless of context if you feel that strongly about Manzardo, which they clearly do. And I know some people are going to say, well, Manzardo doesn't hit for a whole lot of power. He had 22 home runs. Some of it was in high A and double A, where the ballparks have a little bit of friendly park factors. I won't lie about that. And he started to struggle the second half of the year before he got hurt in AAA this year. He's still hitting for power. This is a first baseman that a lot of people think is going to hit. Are we talking, a middle? Are we talking a 40 home run hitter? No, we are not, unfortunately, talking a 40 home run hitter. Although, never say never, right? The balls could be juiced again. I didn't think Francisco Lindor hit 30 or Jose Ramirez hit 30. So I don't think we're talking Matt Olson here or Pete Alonso. But I think we're talking like Justin Turner or Daniel Murphy or Yandy Diaz and a good way now. I think we're talking in that range of things. Nate Lowe from the Rangers, who was also a Red Sox Rays prospect. You're talking about a guy who can hit 20, 25 home runs. Like, this is a guy who, while he might not have, he does have good exit velocities. His exit velocities are the same as Jose Ramirez. Now, granted, those are AAA, so we'll see what happens when he gets to the majors. You're going to get a lot of doubles out of him. Hopefully, the home runs may come. This is a guy who gets the ball in the air a lot. Like, he gets to all the raw power he has. Like, in the past, I've talked about how Josh Naylor took forever, and Josh Naylor has way more raw power, obviously, than Kyle Manzardo, but he doesn't get to all of it because of his batted ball profile. It's a lot of ground balls, a lot of line drives, and he just doesn't. He chases a lot too. That's the other thing too. He chases a lot. He ends up hitting singles and doubles on pitches that he maybe shouldn't really go after. Manzardo is a different type of hitter like that, so he could equal Josh Naylor's power output simply because he has better pitch selection. He walks more because of that. He gets the ball in the air more frequently. In general, too. I mean, Naylor also makes a lot of contact, but Manzardo can too, as well. So if you're talking about a guy who can hit 25 home runs and 30 doubles, that's 50 extra base hits is pretty solid. It may not be, like I said, it may not be Matt Olson or Freddie Freeman or Pete Alonso at first base, but this team needs a long-term solution at first base / DH. Like Josh Naylor. The thing about Josh Naylor is he currently is on the IL. He's had injuries pretty much every year. Let's see, how many times has he played over 100 games? Last year was the first time, and I know in San Diego he didn't get a whole lot of shots. He played 94 games in 2019 there, and the pandemic hit, and then he got hurt in 2021, came back, played 122. He's going to get over 100 this year when he comes back, hopefully. Even in the minors, he only had one season, only 2 seasons where he played over 100 games. So most of the time in the minors, he was not playing over 100 games either. So that's a bit of an issue you have to worry about as well. And he's going to be a free agent for 2025. You've got 2 more years with him. You've got 24 and 25. He's probably not signing a long-term deal. Because he's having the best year of his career. And I think he wants to cash in at arbitration. Now, this injury is going to hurt him, certainly, in arbitration. But I don't think he is taking a deal from the Guardians where you're like, okay, we'll buy out a couple of years of free agency and you'll take a discount on the back end of it. Because he is 26 and he would hit free agency. He would need a 6-year deal, I think, because of that. So you're talking about a guy who's not going to take a 4-year deal because this will be his one chance to get paid. And you just don't know how he's going to hold up anyway with the injuries and history there. And regardless, you don't have a DH right now. It's rotating. And I think that's a good thing to have the DH rotate. But these two could make a good pairing for the foreseeable future. For the next 2 years, at least, you should have Manzardo. Hopefully their timelines intersect a little more. They can go back and forth. I mean, Manzardo's got to be better than Josh Bell was this year, at least. Although we thought Josh Bell would be better than Owen Miller, which he is. He's better than Owen Miller because, hey, Owen Miller netted cash. Josh Bell netted Khalil Watson, which we're going to talk about too, as well. So I think this makes a lot of sense. I think Manzardo right now is easily, if he isn't their top prospect right now, he is their second best prospect based on proximity and safe value. And I know those are famous last words saying safe value, but we'll see. I think there's enough reliability there to think that he can be a league average hitter at first base. And you need more than that at first base. Truthfully, 100 WRC plus is league average. I think you need at least 120 at first base. I mean, the best first basemen in baseball right now are, in the 150 range, and that includes Josh Naylor, who's at 127. I don't see why you can't get 127 out of Kyle Manzardo for the next several years. I don't see why not. He's hit everywhere he's gone, and the exit velocities are good. He gets the ball in the air. If you hit the ball in the air with those exit velocities, home runs will come. The approach is already good. I have confidence this is going to be a solid player. And like I said, if you probably ask anybody on the Rays or any Rays fans, would they have done this deal over the offseason? Not a chance. They would not have traded Kyle Manzardo. I don't think at all. I think they would have wanted to keep him. And I think I talked to some Rays fans too, who follow their system, who think that it was worth it to get Civale, but it was a high price to pay given the market. And that's the other thing too. The market drove this deal. You saw the returns for all the rental pitchers out there, excluding the Mets, who paid salaries to get prospects, which is smart for them considering where they are. But there were no pitchers like Civale with his control left that were on the market. So Cleveland capitalized on an inefficiency. We'll see if it works out for them, but they need a solution at first base long term. Kyle Manzardo can be that. I guarantee this means they probably had interest in him his draft year. He was a good player in college in Washington State. So we're going to find out. I think he's at least a top 2 prospect in their system right now based on all those things. So that trade, as painful as it was, you weren't winning with that current roster. You weren't guaranteed to make the playoffs the way things were going with how inconsistent this team was. Then you might as well capitalize on that. I mean, if they didn't get the offer Manzardo, they don't make that deal. And the fact that they got Manzardo and not a package of 3 or 4 players tells you they really value Manzardo because in the past they've taken larger packages, right? Like the Bauer deal, the Clevenger deal. They've taken 3 or 4 players trying to get more bites at the apple, trying to, if 1 or 2 of those players ends up being a productive major leaguer, you do a good job out of that. And the Clevenger deal has borne a lot of fruit. So now it'll be up to Manzardo to make the Civale deal work out. This is still a good team. This is still a team that can win next year too. You have the 3 rookie pitchers. You might get 1 or 2 of those starters back that's injured right now. Maybe. Hopefully Quantrill comes back. Maybe there's some other guys you can add in pitching wise. There's Cody Morris. There's Joey Cantillo. Those kind of things. You've got to find a way to score runs. Scoring runs is the biggest problem on this team. So for everybody who's sitting there saying that this offense needs help, and you don't like the way they went out and did it, I'm sorry. Civale is worth that to me. I don't think he's going to pitch this well. He might pitch this well the rest of his career. Maybe he stays healthy. The track record doesn't say so, but track records can change based on player performance. We'll see. I think it's a worthwhile shot, though. I don't think it's a gamble. I think it's just a worthwhile exercise in value. That's the other thing too. You have to remember, the Guardians don't often go all in on the trading deadline, and this is not the year to do that based on who was available, both based on their standing, what they have. Right? 2016, 2017, 2018. Very clearly they were going for it. You did, the trades with Miller. You tried to get Jonathan Lucroy. You got Jay Bruce and Joe Smith. You got Josh Donaldson, Brad Hand. Those deals were all in deals. They weren't selling. The Guardians need to get back to that point. But because they're not, they have 1 foot on in between the 2 lines of buying and selling. I don't like to look at it as buying and selling either, because a lot of other teams do this. The Rays categorically normally do this. They didn't this year because of where they're at in the standings. They got off to a hot start. They have a good team. They feel like they are all in. They were in first place in the best division in baseball. Typically, though, a lot of teams are more opportunists. They want to get value. You're trying to build the best long-term club you can in terms of winning. And it's okay once in a while to kind of push the chips to the middle, like Cleveland did in 16, 17, 18. And that's why they started to do their, slight tear down. I don't want to say tear down, but they revamped the roster year by year. And that's why Jose Ramirez is the last guy standing from those years. And that's why when they faced Mike Clevenger the other week, Jose Ramirez is the only guy left from the time when Clevenger was here. So that's how that happens. And you're trying to give yourself the most chances to win. And you're trying to find a year like the Rays, or you're trying to find a year like 2016, 2017, where you could commit to giving yourself the best chance to win the postseason. That year was not this year. I don't care how much you care about random variance. There's not enough random variance this year in the playoffs for this offense to come through. And I think Manzardo can be a solution for this offense that so desperately needs it. So that trade makes a ton of sense to me. The other move was Josh Bell for Cleo Watson in Miami. This trade blew my mind for a lot of reasons. First, Josh Bell has a player option of $16.5 million next year. And he's not played well. Everybody in baseball thinks that he's picking the option up next year because he's not going to be able to do better on the free agent market than $16 million. That trade was that signing was a flop. If he played well, this team would be in a better position, and they would be adding and not subtracting if they got the Josh Bell they were looking for, right? The fact that he is having a bad season, to me, and they got Khalil Watson, and they cleared his salary. I know they took on Gene Segura, and they cut him very promptly. They saved some money on this, and I know my people will say, well, great, the Dolans pocketed more money. Who cares? Why do we care about that? And you shouldn't. You shouldn't care about that. You should care about what they do to reinvest the money to make this team better in any way, shape, or form. That's what you should care about. The saving the money part is good. The part that needs to be is the follow through and what you do with that money on the field is what matters there. The Khalil Watson thing. So the fact they found someone to take for Josh Bell makes a lot of sense is impressive because clearly they want to get Kyle Manzardo a shot. If they are stuck with Josh Bell's player option next year, having Josh Naylor and Josh Bell blocks Kyle Manzardo. So now you've created space for Kyle Manzardo. I think I thought maybe they could shop Josh Bell over the offseason. I didn't know how many takers they would get. So I'm impressed enough they found someone to do that and found a way to save money if they can reinvest it. And then you get a prospect like Khalil Watson back. Khalil Watson is not a typical Guardians prospect. He has hit tool questions. Just not everybody knows if he's going to make enough contact. He's got some background character choices that were poor. If you weren't aware of the incident, so he was suspended in Miami last year in the minor leagues because he didn't like a check swing call that got called a strike against him from an umpire, and he took the bat and he pointed at the umpire like a gun and made a shooting motion. Not great. It's not a good look, especially in today's environment. I'm just going to be honest. And he was suspended for that. And there have been, not whispers, but there's been open talk about just didn't get along with coaches there, or the coaches didn't like him, or something to that effect. I'm not 1,000% on those details there. There's definitely some headbutting there on both sides, I would say. So this is not typically a player Cleveland targets. A fresh start and a wake-up call on a trade. The fact that the Miami was willing to dump him so fast after being the 16th overall pick 2 years ago, might say a lot to him. And hopefully, like I said, a change of scenery with new coaches and just somewhere fresh might help him. The talent is undeniable. I mean, there were people who thought that he was a top 5, possibly a top 10 talent in the system or in the draft that year. He slid to 16 because of character concerns and maybe some money as well. I'm not sure, but I think there's a lot of people who felt like he fell because of that. He has not played particularly well since he's got to the pros. He struck out a lot. What he does do well is he's a gifted athlete. He is probably the best athlete in the Guardian system now. He has at least above average raw power, maybe plus. There's a lot of power in that bat, especially for a shortstop or a middle infielder. He could be a gifted infielder with some repetition and some changes. The biggest question for him is the hit tool and the character thing. He's got to put the work in. But for Josh Bell, we're talking about, this is a boomer bust player. I think the outcomes or the range of outcomes for Khalil Watson, I'm not saying he can't be just a fringe average major leaguer, but looking at it from a probability standpoint, the probabilities are he never makes the majors or he's a star. Those are probably the two highest probabilities. Like Fangraphs used to do this great thing where they used to have a calculated WAR chart, like probability of outcomes, where it would kind of predict the range of wins above replacement. I don't think they do this anymore. And it might have been Cato, and that was the guy who got hired by the Twins, I think. But they used to do a WAR projection where the highest odds of this guy's WAR were 0, and the second highest odds would have been like two wins above replacement or that. If they did that with Khalil Watson, I guarantee it would be the highest probability of career WAR or whatever WAR for him might be 0. But the second highest might be like 10 or 20. He might have, I'm not talking about obviously one season, but I'm just saying the highest probabilities for him are either star or he doesn't make the majors. There's definitely a world where he, makes the majors and he's just an okay player, or he just has a cup of coffee. There's that, but the highest range of outcome, the highest probability of outcomes for him is one of those two things. So for Josh Bell, for a guy that you didn't want on the roster now, you didn't want on the roster next year, and not a lot of people were really interested in, to get a guy like that, that's worth it to me. That's what the Guardians should be doing. I know everyone's going to say the Guardians have a ton of shortstops, and some of them, can make contact, but none of them are really stars, can hit for power. Khalil Watson, if things go right, he can hit for power and play shortstop, or he can. I think he's athletic enough to move to center field too. I think there's a reasonable ask there to see if he can man the outfield a little bit too. He has the arm, he should have the speed. Outfield might, there are guys. Oscar Mercado comes to mind. Remember, he was a terrible defensive shortstop in the minors. He got to the outfield and things kind of changed for him. Things opened up. It was good. And obviously he hasn't gone well since. And Khalil Watson, if he ever got there, that would be a real accomplishment if he got to Oscar Mercado's level. But, things can clear up if you change positions. Maybe it's a fresh start there as well. So he doesn't have to stay at shortstop. He's played some second, but I think outfield could be an option for him. We'll see if the Guardians go that route in the offseason. But there's a lot of upside there, and Khalil Watson, he doesn't have to go on the 40-man roster for 2 more years. So you have 2024, you have all 2024 and all 2025 to figure out what is going to happen with him. And there's no reason not to play the living crap out of him at every position possible and make every mechanical thing you can fix with him to see if he can break out. Because if he can, he's a star. And that's worth it. That's more than worth it for Josh Bell. If it doesn't work out, you cleared some money, and you hope that Kyle Manzardo is worth that roster spot next year. Everyone's happy. So not a lot of downside here for the Guardians in terms of this deal. I'm excited about Khalil Watson. I hope it works out, but it's really good for creativity. I'm really impressed at how that deal came together. I'm surprised. A lot of system movement the last couple of days. Really exciting stuff. So I'll start here. Brian Webb is back off the IL in Lake County. He's going to pitch this week. That's great to hear. We got draft pick news. Draft picks are going to play. So Ralphie Velasquez played his first game at DH on Monday night. He had a hit and a steal. Great to see that. You had Matt Jahasik. I can't pronounce the guy's last name. He made his debut in the ACL as well, and he got promoted to Lynchburg after that. So he'll go to an affiliate. You're going to get Cooper Ingle, the catcher from Clemson, is going to play at Lake County. That's an aggressive promotion. Not only is he skipping low A, or not only is he playing his draft year, which is not usual for the Guardians the last several years, as we talked about, He's going to high A. That's fun. They need catching so bad at every level, so badly. Joe Donovan and Zach Fascia are good org guys who are, pitchers like working with. Their coaches' dreams, but Cooper Ingalls should get a lot of playing time there. At Lynchburg, you get Alex Mooney, who might have been one of the more interesting picks in that draft. The Duke infielder who they had to overpay to get here, and his deal might have cost money. Might have cost them Mac Hewer and the other high school kid that ended up going to college. So that's a bummer. But Mooney, they thought very highly of. He's going to go to Lynchburg. CJ Kafis, the first baseman / outfielder from Miami, he's going to go to Lynchburg. Catcher Johnny Tincher from Washington, he's going to go to Lynchburg. That should be fun for him. The 5'8" catcher. I've never seen a catcher that small. Jacob Bresnahan and Keegan Zinn are going to make their ACL debuts this week. That's super fun. Tyler Thornton went to Akron. Just a ton of movement overall in the system. That's good to see. The reason that you're seeing more draft picks make their debut is because I think it's because of this new rule. I think I've asked around a couple people. I'm looking at a Tanner Bybee stat line from his great start. They have to add these guys to the 180 Ram roster now. They have a organizational roster of 180, and they had to add these guys 15 days after they were signed. So the Guardians used to take their time adding to the roster, which didn't cost them a spot this season. They have to now add all these guys to the 108-man roster because of this new rule. So if they're on the roster, they might as well just play these guys. It makes a lot more sense, I think. So that's cool to see that these guys are going to play. It's exciting. I know we always get mad about how all these other exciting guys go out and they make their major league debuts or their pro debuts with other teams, and the Guardians are sitting here waiting until April to get their first round pick on the field. That sucks. It doesn't seem to be the case anymore, though. The Guardians will have to do that because of the new rule, and we'll see if that's good for everybody. The Guardians even say, we're not saying that our way is the best way, but they like it because they always said they wanted to get guys acclimated to pro ball, get them set up with the right routines, and some of these guys too were playing in the spring and summer, and they were done playing by June or July, and to get them in here by the end of mid-August and ramp them back up to game speed, just doesn't make a whole lot of sense sometimes, especially for pitchers, right? Whose season might be over. Maybe they threw a lot of innings. So, and like I said, the Guardians have never said that's the best way to do it. They just think it's makes some sense. And I don't know. We'll see. I mean, Tanner Bybee didn't lose anything from it, right? Tanner Bybee didn't make his debut until 2022. Didn't really hurt him. Didn't really hurt Kevin Williams either. So it's just boring for fans, unfortunately. But again, no longer really a problem, which is good. Those guys are going to be playing a little bit more, so we can all get excited about draft picks a little bit and see what you got. In terms of minor league excitement, it's been a tough year. I am working on my top prospects list still. I wanted to have it out by now, but I haven't had time to work on it like I thought. I definitely felt kind of down on this system, to be honest with you, out of this year. I was kind of disappointed where things have gone. It's been a frustrating year, but I will say recently there's been some improvements. Like I think Kyle Manzardo again is my number 2 prospect right now. I'll just say that. You still have George Valera. We'll see. I'm still. He can't stay on the field, and things haven't been good this year. I feel like he's just kind of trying to make up for lost time. It's always hard, but he's still pretty young, and they could use a bat like that if he comes through. So he's still worth feeling pretty good about. Chase DeLauder, I haven't seen enough yet. I'm not going to change my feelings on him too much because he's been hurt, and we've seen some flashes. I really like Ralphie Velasquez's bat. I think that was a good draft pick. If you didn't hear us talk about that on previous Guardians of the Future, Willie and I, go back and look at that. Juan Brito has been fantastic. I think he is a major leaguer. I just don't know where he can hit. Joey Cantillo has been healthy all year. That's great to see. He's missing plenty of bats. He's throwing 98 now. He's more like 95, but he's throwing 98. That's cool. Angel Martinez had a dreadful first half. He is much better now. Cody Morris is healthy again. We'll see what's going on there. I'm so confused about his role, but I still like the upside there. Jason Chorio needs a trip out of Lynchburg or out of Arizona so bad. He needs to go to Lynchburg. He is just blowing the competition away. Wellman Francisco's having a great year in the Dominican for whatever that's worth. I don't really put a whole lot of stock into that. I have Clemmy ranked pretty high. I'm not really high on the pick, but I think it's just due to the system and graduations. Like, there's been a lot of graduations this year. And Watson is a boomer bust prospect that has a lot of potential. I'm really high on there. After that, it is a bit of a rough time in terms of prospect rankings. Franco Aleman has burst onto the scene as a good reliever, where I talked to Rouglas Odor about him. You'll hear that in an interview coming up here. I'm excited about that. I still think that there's a lot to be excited about. Ethan Hankins has looked better recently, but there's a lot of guys in this list that just have, like, this is the guys I'm looking at, like John Kenson-Noel, down year, Angel Janau, down year, P.D. Halpin. He's still young, but he's shown flashes. I just haven't seen enough yet. Peyton Banfield's graduating. Trenton Denholm has never put it together. I am getting higher on Jake Fox. I've seen a lot the last few weeks I like about him. You're going to hear an interview with him. Diane Frias should be considered a bit of a breakout. I've really enjoyed him. We have to talk about him as a potential 40-man ad. Jonathan Rodriguez, I didn't have him ranked early in the season. I'm going to rank him now. I still have doubts about the overall upside, but I think the talent is there for sure. It's a shame that we didn't see Dylan DeLucia or Justin Campbell this year. Hopefully we'll see him next year. I'm still high on Justin Campbell. I don't know what the surgery was, but I'm still high there, but could have been a much worse season overall. I mean, if Daniel Espino comes back next year and you could forget about this, you can feel good about that. Andrew Walters is a good relief prospect. This bullpen needs it, so that's exciting as well. So I'm hoping my rankings out this week sometime after the trading deadline. So there's that. All right, when we come back, I'm going to play you about, a minute and a half to about 2.5 minutes of an interview with Jake Fox I did last week, again, 2 weeks ago, after his 4-for-4 performance in Lake County, where he played a good night in center field. And then I'm going to play you my interview with Rouglas Odor from Akron last weekend as well. So just hang on as we wrap up this week's Guardians of the Future podcast.
I don't feel like I'm doing too much different. Just kind of trusting the work I'm putting in, trusting our coaching staff, our team, and just trying to go out there and execute at bats. And, not worried about the result. Just trying to execute my at bat and trying to win the game. Ultimately, we came up short tonight. But we're ready to get after it on Tuesday. It's huge. Obviously, I want to have confidence every time when I step up in the box, no matter if I'm 4 Ks going up there for my fifth, or like tonight I had 4 hits going up there for my fifth. Trying to have the same confidence every time, believing in myself. I trust the work I put in. I know how hard I work, and I know how much our coaches work with me, and they work hard as well. So it's honestly, the confidence is probably just built every day in practice, and I feel comfortable, so I'm going up there every time thinking I'm going to get it done.
You were busy in the field.
Just been, working on little things in the cage here and there with my hitting coach Beck, and I've always had confidence every day, even though I was struggling really bad earlier this season. Just thinking the next day was going to be the day that I break out of it and start to figure it out. And this month it started to happen, but it was all the work that we've been putting in each month every day. Props to my hitting coach for just working with me every day. And I trust him, he trusts me, and it's starting to click, and I'm feeling good in the outfield. I think for me it was just about getting reps in the game and just more in-game experience in the outfield, so I haven't played there that much. Getting to play there all this year has been awesome. I feel really confident, comfortable out there. It just comes naturally, I guess. Just kind of frees me up to be athletic and just go get the ball and be aggressive. So I love it out there. Also comfortable at second base, wherever it is in the infield. Just trying to have as much value as I can to help the team win. I feel like I had 2 great options. One, either go to University of Florida and play baseball, or sign and play for Cleveland. So my dad helped me a lot, and my agent throughout that process. And ultimately, I feel like I made the best decision for me. And I'm having a blast. I'm having a ton of fun. But yeah, my dad's been there for me every step of the way. He's my role model, a guy I look up to.
This is the perfect way to
everything
end the
to me, supports me, encourages me, my whole family. But yeah, I mean, I think this was ultimately the best decision, and I'm having a blast.
Cool. That was Jake Fox talking about his 4-4 performance and his breakout recently that I think he's played better. I talked about him in center field, and he talked about his draft process and his dad kind of guiding him and his agent and his advisor trying to get him into the pro system. So appreciate Jake taking this time after the game to talk about that. I think the arrow is pointing up for him as well. I'm going to play you the interview with Rouglas Odor after the Akron game last week, talking about Will Dion and Franco Aleman, Juan Brito, Tanner Burns, Jack Leftiwch, Jose Tena, Angel Martinez, all those guys. So enjoy that. You'll get some value out of that. I know I sure did. And thanks for listening this week. If you are into prospects and into the Guardian system, make sure you're listening every week whenever we have a podcast. I know it's been inconsistent and the faces change in and out all week. I'm doing the best I can with doing 5 podcasts a week on Locked On Guardians. So make sure you're staying tuned there. And, download, leave a comment, leave a review wherever you can. Tell a friend. It really helps. I appreciate it if you're sticking with me. And I'll try to be back with some more guests here in the next coming episodes as we head into the offseason, talk about the 40-man roster and hopefully Arizona Fall League as well. And I'll come back, and don't forget to check out next year in Cleveland or next year in CLE.substack.com. I will drop the link to the site, and you can listen or watch for my top prospect rankings. So thanks for listening, and enjoy the interview with Rouglas Odor. Obviously, tough loss tonight, but Will Dion able to give you 5 1/3 good innings. What did you like from him tonight?
Oh, he was great. He was able to keep hitters off balance and using all his pitches and gave us a very good chance to win the ball game. So that was nice to see him, performing the way he did.
Generally, for a guy who is hitting 90, 91 at the top, is it just about for him what he's done for you since he's been up here, keeping guys off balance, using all his pitches? What allows him to be successful at this level? Because more often than not, he is giving you guys a chance to win and pitching pretty well every time out.
It's just the ability that he has commanding all his pitches. So it's not just his fastball, but also his secondary pitches. So he's able to locate him, and he throws off-speed pitches behind the count for a strike, and also he can locate his fastball. So when you do that, you're going to have most of the time a lot of success.
That's a good lineup too, obviously, who's able to do that against.
Yeah, he's been able to do it, versus other teams, with good lineups too. So.
You had 2 guys who have started for you this year kind of follow him out of the bullpen. Are you just kind of trying to, at this point, manage guys' innings? Are you switching roles around with Burns and Leftiwch at this point?
Yeah, we've done it. I think with Burns, now we're gonna use him as a reliever. We were doing it every other outing, but with Leftiwch, that's what we've been doing. Piggyback. Yeah.
A couple guys that didn't play tonight. Juan Brito, 2 nights off in a row. Everything okay with him?
He was taking ground balls. Was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. No, day before yesterday. During his pregame work, and a ball got hit on the tip of his finger, and he has a fracture.
Okay. Is he going to be down for a while?
No. It's just one of those fractures that, he's going to come back in the next few days.
Okay.
Yeah.
What have you seen from him up here that has allowed him to jump right up here and just succeed right off the bat?
Play discipline. Does a great job controlling the strike zone from both sides of the plate. And he's a second baseman for me, but he's also getting experience at third base. So, but he has done a great job.
And Franco Aleman, since he's been here, just no one's able to touch him. What have you seen from him that just made him so dominant?
Yeah. I mean, he's throwing high 90s and also pounding the strike zone. And when you do that, he has a nice sinker, and a nice slider, and he's been able to command the zone. And when you do that, throwing high 90s, obviously, you're also going to give yourself, a pretty good chance to dominate.
2 guys that you just lost recently, Angel Martinez and Jose Tena. Jose made his debut tonight up in Cleveland, but those 2 guys got really hot for you towards the end before they were promoted.
Right.
And early in the year, a couple of those guys kind of struggled a little bit. So what did they turn around that allowed them to finally move on?
Well, that's baseball. Sometimes you're going to have ups and downs, and things were not going their way at the beginning of the season, but it's just the fact that they were working and putting the time on defense, base running, and swinging the bat. When you do that, obviously, you're going to get better, and that's what they did throughout the whole season. So I'm excited and happy for them that they got the call to go to Columbus in the big league. So I just wish them the best of luck there.
Appreciate it.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.